Welcome to Boss Talk. My name is Jim Parker. This is my business partner, Carey Sobel. We specialize in helping people sell their businesses.
And today's episode of Boss Talk is titled Relationships, a Key to Selling Businesses. There's nothing more important in life than having great interactions with people, building deep-rooted relationships. Honestly, biologically at our core, humans need social interaction. And I think that, Jim, relationships really are what define your legacy, right? So when you're not here anymore and what people say about you is built in what they know about you or the relationships that you have. For me personally, I think that I want my legacy to be remembered as a man of integrity in all of my personal and professional dealings. When I'm not here anymore, I want people to know or to think, hey, that was a good guy. I enjoyed my relationship with him. And in what we do, it's a people business, right? We're consistently working with people, we're building relationships. And I think putting the relationship in front of the transaction is the key, right? We are here to do a service, to offer a service, to help sell a business, which is a transaction, but we want to do it with people that we like.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, to build on that too, Carey, I mean, isn't that what life's all about, is relationships?
Yeah.
Relationships with your spouse, with your children, your parents, your grandparents, your siblings, everybody in your life, everybody you're involved in your life that you go day in, day out. It's about life. That's what life's about.
Yeah. And we spend a lot of our time with our coworkers and our colleagues and our partners almost as much as we do at home in our family life. So we want to work with people that we like.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I recall particularly a conversation you and I were having, and you were frustrated, and you called me up and you go, Carey, you know, I'm sick of this. I want to work with people I like. That's it. And I think it was because there was a seller or somebody that you were engaging with, and you were frustrated with the seller. You didn't care for the seller. I don't think the seller cared for you. And you're like, I'm just not going to do this anymore.
Right.
I want to make sure that if I'm going to engage with somebody, and take this journey to sell a business, which is not a quick thing, that I want to enjoy the interaction while I'm doing it. So, you know, before we talk about the relationship with our clients, I think it's important to talk about our Boss Group culture.
Right. And I think that's the core of what Boss Group stands for is the relationships that we have. And we're going to get into deep about that. But, you know, talking about that particular incident, it was a wake-up call. You know, when you first start selling businesses or you get into any kind of industry, I think, you know, you're just trying to pick up work here and there. And then as you get more experienced, more seasoned, you do have that opportunity that you can be a little bit more selective. And, you know, it's good for me and it's good for the business owners to be able to be in that position that makes sure that we like each other. And that particular situation, Carey, you know, like you said, it's a hard process. It's a lengthy process. We got to work really well together throughout that process. And if we're not getting along and there's not a good match there between you and the other person, you know, it's just hard to get deals done that way.
Yeah.
And to go one step further, if I don't like and trust the seller, will a buyer like and trust that seller?
Of course. Yeah, the writing is on the wall. Man.
Right.
So
and you know what? And to go a little bit further too, you know, you were talking, Carey, about, you know, we're going through life, you know, and we should enjoy life. And I enjoy what I do for a living. You enjoy what you do for a living. And part of that is working with people that you really, really like. You know, I don't want to be involved in a transaction where the other person dreads picking up the phone and calling you. I don't want to be involved in a transaction where I'm, you know, dreading to pick up the phone and call somebody else. You know, it's about building those relationships. Without
a doubt. And, you know, when you're selling a business for somebody, it's a very emotional thing. It's in most cases, it's the first time somebody's selling a business, and they need to trust you intrinsically from the beginning. You need to trust them too. And as you're helping tell their story, it's easier to do that when you actually care for the person.
Right.
And, you know, you've told me a couple times that you still have relationships with people who you've sold their business, and you have friendships with them now. Now, it doesn't always need to turn into a friendship, but if you can, you know what's going on in their life personally, you know about their kids, you know about their spouse, their hobbies, their interests, sometimes you make a friend out of it. You truly do. But if not, you want to at least feel like you're being authentic when you're having those conversations with people. Hey, how's the kids? All right, let's just get to the dirty and talk about business.
Right.
No, you kind of want to actually enjoy that relationship building part of it.
This is the biggest asset for a lot of business owners. The biggest asset they're ever going to sell. You know, they're going to realize the most money they've ever realized in their life when they sell their business. it should be enjoyable for them as well.
Yeah.
You know, it shouldn't be a process where, you know, they're hating it and it's being dreaded, and you know, it comes down to the relationship.
Yep. I actually just finished a transaction with a person who I listed their business for sale. It took about 8 months to sell. And after the sale, it was about 3 months. We went out to dinner, to a steak dinner, and I said, "So what are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I got the itch. I'm going to go start another business." I said, "Oh, that's why you called and asked me to sit down and go out to a steak dinner. I thought we were celebrating the sale." And he goes, "Well, this is what I want to do." And he told me about his next venture, and it was a chiropractic business. And he goes, "I would like for you to help me find another business to either buy, or I want to start something from scratch." And because we built such a strong relationship when I helped him exit his first business, obviously he's going to call me to go on the next venture. Since then, not only have we leased a new space, I've helped him spin up his new business, I've referred him to contractors, to a marketing company, and I talk to him on the daily basis, just checking in on him personally on how he's doing. The transaction's done. We signed a lease. I got my compensation for that. But I genuinely care about his next step. It wasn't just about the transaction.
And I'm sure that he can tell that you genuinely care.
He does, and that's why he called me in the first place. And I think there's consideration for everything, right? He wanted to go out to dinner because he had a need, right? He wanted to take the next step, but he trusted me, and he wanted my opinion on whether I thought it was the right next step. Should he buy another existing business? Should he start a new business? He wanted the opinion from me from a personal standpoint because he trusts me, and from a business standpoint because I do this for a living. So
Right.
I'm a resource to him, and I happen to be able to make a living off of that. That is the full circle of what we're talking about here.
And that's what life is kind of about.
Yeah.
Right? At
Yeah.
the end of the day, you know, that's, I think, when you boil down, you know, what life is all about, it's about relationships. And it's not just relationships with your spouse and your children and your grandchildren and, you know, your grandparents and your friends, but it's the relationships you deal with and touch with every day in your life. You know, other brokers, the lenders, the sellers, the buyers. And it goes beyond that, I think, with anybody, not just us as business brokers, but any profession out there.
Oh yeah, and there's so many other people that touch a deal. And as we're working with sellers of a business, we're introducing them to our network of advisors, financial advisors, attorneys, CPAs. We're not going to refer somebody that we wouldn't want to work with ourselves.
Exactly.
Yep. So, of course, the best referral source for us as business brokers are previous clients. If we can do a solid service to a seller and accomplish what they're looking for, they're going to be our best referral source. I have a business owner that I sold a business to, I don't know, maybe it had to have been 7-8 years ago. Since then, we've done 8 transactions together. That speaks volumes to our reputation. That speaks volumes to how important relationships are. At the end of the day, we're kind of a pawn to people that are looking to buy a business or sell a business. We are a vehicle to help them get something accomplished that they want to do. But they're not going to come back and work with us 8 times, for example, unless they enjoy working with us, unless we built a relationship on foundations of trust and truly just enjoying interacting with each other.
And this, truly and genuinely, this isn't fake. This isn't like, oh, let's fake this. And
Can't fake it 8 times.
You can't fake it. No, it's about having a genuinely good relationship.
Yep. And aside from clients and working with clients that we like, we have to like working with each other. Right. You like me, I like you. We have a partner that we love, and
we have a good time together.
Damn right we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little too good of a time. But our whole staff, our culture is built on supporting each other, being authentic. There's no BS. There's no nothing other than just like true relationships that are built from enjoying each other's company. Like when we have to call our admins, when we have to call our closing coordinator, or we have to call our buying coordinator, I'm picking up the phone. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And it's not just straight to the point about business. It's
right. I don't buy into this fact. For me, I don't buy into this fact of being a hardcore boss, with the whip and just yelling and screaming and, demanding stuff. And it's about genuinely building relationships with everybody and the people that you work with in your office and having really good relationships. I really like the people that work with us at Boss Group. I think they genuinely like us. And I think that goes a long way. And I think, sometimes business owners have this perspective, oh, they're an employee, you know, they're going to do what I say, and, you know, I'm going to come down hard on them if they do something wrong. And to me, that is not a good way to run a business. You know, I think somebody's going to give more effort in their job if they feel like they are important to the process, if they feel like that they're respected, that they really like the people that they're working with, that they feel like the people that they're working with really like them. And you know what, Carey? Those kind of people are going to stay around longer, you know, when you own a business. You know, it's not, your staff's not turning over. You know, you're not getting new staff every 6 months or every year. I mean, you look at Stephanie. Stephanie's fantastic.
Been with us 10 years.
She's been with us for 10 years. And then Tara's been with us for 5 years. You know, longevity, it's you know, you pay them well, you give them good benefits, you treat them well. And not just those things, but you genuinely have a really good relationship with them. You know, like you said, I get on the phone with Stephanie or Tara or anybody else in the company. You know, I like knowing how their weekend was.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just asking, oh, how was your weekend, and move on. I genuinely want to know how they're doing.
It's not
What's
obligatory.
going on with them. Yeah. And I want them to be honest. I don't want them to just be like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing great. I want to know, you know?
Feel the same way. Frankly, you know, in another business I own, I have, you know, 30 something employees, and I hate when they call me boss, or I hate when
I hate that
I
too,
hate the employer. No,
I don't like calling them employees. I don't like to be called boss.
We're dedicating our lives to work together, right? If somebody hangs their professional dealings at your company and they are working with you, that's a big commitment. You know, they have thousands of places that
you should feel honored, right? You should feel honored.
Yeah.
And you know our philosophy. We walk into a conference room to have a meeting. You and I don't sit at the head of the table, do we? You know, it's not one person, you know, over another person. It's about us sitting down. Nobody's at the head of the table, and we're just talking. And okay, what do we need to do? What are our weaknesses? What are our strengths? How can we move forward? This is an update. What's going on in the company, and we're working together, and not just barking orders.
There's no level of hierarchy. We're all equals. Everybody holds a role in the process that allows us to get from A to Z. And there's just no reason to treat anybody other than, you know, the best that you possibly can. Empower them. I don't believe in red tape, especially in small business.
Yeah.
Everybody can make an impact. Every single person, whether it's the person wiping the floors to the person that is, you know, the highest in the totem pole. Everybody plays a role in getting a deal done or making a sale, whatever it may be. So no opinion is
Carey, we're all going through life together. You know, we're all going through life together. Let's make life enjoyable for each other as much as we possibly can. And you know, when we are sitting down and we're looking to hire somebody new for Boss Group, an important factor is not just their experience and their know-how and, you know, what strengths they're going to bring to Boss Group, but it's their personality. You know, how do we like them? Do we feel like there's a good mesh with us? How do we think they're going to fit into the culture of Boss Group and everybody else is going to be at Boss Group? Because it's really important that everybody gets along with each other and not just passively get along like, oh yeah, I can put up with that person, but generally gets along.
That's how we build our business internally, and then externally, I think it's starting to really spill over. And for me, it was that time where you called me and you're like, I'm just going to work with people I like. I'm not afraid to say no. You know, I've turned down listings of people that I just don't think I'm going to be able to get along with, or I don't trust that seller, that they're being honest and open with me. So before we get into buyer and seller relationships, which I think is the meat and potatoes of how relationships are a key to selling businesses, I still want to touch on a little bit more us taking on a listing, right? So we talked in previous episodes about bringing out the skeletons in the closet, bringing up the red flags. It takes so much to get a deal done that from the very beginning, if you can't build that trust with the seller, if you don't feel like they're being open with you with everything, if you don't feel like you're going to enjoy working with them, I mean, there are things that are true red flags that when I'm interviewing a seller to see if I'm going to take that listing, I'm throwing out little tests that if they don't pass those litmus tests, I'm already writing off not working with them. No. What are some things that a seller might say in a interview to see if you want to work with them that would throw them off?
You know, Carey, it's kind of the same reflection that we have on our company. You know, I think I've you know, been helping people sell businesses for 25 years almost. And so I've seen a lot of bad businesses, I've seen good businesses, I've seen great businesses. And I'm going to tell you, the businesses that tend to be the best are the businesses where the business owners kind of have that same reflection that we have with the culture of the people that are working in the office.
In their business.
In their business.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying that there aren't some good businesses that I came across where the business owner didn't treat they didn't treat their employees well. But for the most part, in small business, the most successful business owners kind of have the same outlook that we have, and how we treat, and our culture is the same as their culture. You know, and that becomes apparent when you start talking to them and how they talk about their employees, their key employees, their non-key employees. You know, that's kind of the first indication of, you know, how are they treating the people that help them get where they want to be, or
And-
where they got to.
And on that point, talk is cheap, right? People can say one thing and do something different because it's a facade. But, you know, I have a seller who I'm working with right now, and one of the first things he said to me is, what I care the most about in this transaction is that my employees are taken care of.
You know, Carey, I love that you said that, because I feel the same way. I love when business owners, and you can tell when they're being genuine or not. When they say, I want my employees to be taken care of. Or, you know, I really want my customers and clients to be taken care of. I really want to make sure that they're taken care of. I've even had business owners say, I want my vendors and suppliers to be taken care of. They've taken care of me over the years.
Yeah.
And that's opening up a whole nother thing. You know, you treat your suppliers and your vendors well. You know, you don't sit there and try to, in small business, you don't try to sit there and beat them up on price and try to get the lowest price you possibly can get, push them to the limit. But you treat your suppliers and your vendors in a good manner, and you want, to me, you want those suppliers and vendors to look at you as, wow, they're a great client. They don't beat me up on price. I'm not saying you overpay, but, you know, hey, get a good price for, I get a good price for my service or product, and at the same time, you know, they treat me with respect. You know, they're not over demanding. And they tend to work better with you. And then when there is a problem, there is an emergency, and you need something taken care of, those suppliers and those vendors are going to have your back. You know, so I think that's the first indication of, you know, if it's a business owner I want to work with, is what are their interactions with their employees? What are their interactions like with their vendors and suppliers, with their customers and clients? How do they view that? And that just comes out through natural conversation when you're talking to them the first time.
Yeah, no question. I opened up talking a little bit about legacy. So, you know, if somebody runs a business for 20, 30 years, their legacy is that business. It's a big part of it, right? So you leave your legacy, and you want to leave behind people that might have worked for you for 20 or 30 years if you've owned the business that long. I'm selling a business right now. He's owned it for 35 years. He has one employee who's been there since day one.
Wow.
And as a part of the sale, he had actually said to me, one of the reasons I'm selling is because my number one in line wants to retire. And he said, for me, I want to retire too, but I want to make this to where he can retire at the same time that I do, and I'm going to be on his time clock.
Right.
So to me, that's a legacy where even if it's just that one person that really respects that decision, that goes a long way. That's not going to just land with one person. That one employee is going to talk about that and you know, put that person on a pedestal.
You know, several times in my career, I've had business owners that gave their key employee or two bonuses at the time of closing. You know, because they appreciated, they almost felt obligated. On the time of closing, I'm going to get X amount of dollars. I want to give a little piece to this key employee or that key employee
That made it happen.
That helped them build the business, and I love when I hear that. You know, and I always tell them when they say that, I say the best way to handle that is not to give them the bonus on the day of closing. You know, because the last thing you want is you sell the business.
I'm out. Here's some money.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Obviously, employees should not know the business is for sale. Yeah. Even your key employees should not know the business is for sale, and that's a whole nother episode. But you know, so you don't want on the day of closing to give them a chunk of cash within a week or two, because you don't want to put the new owner in a position where, like you said, hey, I'm out of here. I got a decent sized bonus.
Here's yours. I'm gone.
You know, almost a year's worth of bonus. You know, one lump sum, and there's a new owner coming in, and you know, I want to move on. So I like to tell the business owner, I think that's great that you want to do that. That's fantastic. I love that. But maybe we leave that money into an escrow account for a year or 18 months. And if the employee stays for a year or the 18 months, however long it is, they get that bonus. But if they are not there in a year, 18 months, that money is then donated to a charity that the buyer and the seller agree to.
Interesting.
And the reason I like to have that charity is that way there's no motivating reason for the buyer to get rid of that employee before that time period's up so that they get the money. I don't want a motivating reason for the seller to, cause any kind of interference with that employee. So I think the best thing is they're going to give that bonus. That bonus is put into an escrow account. Year and a half goes down. A year and a half goes by. That employee gets that bonus if they stay, and for some reason, if that employee doesn't stay, it goes to a charity. And you know what? Buyers love that, because now buyers are walking into a business going, okay, the business owner is going to train me and going to be there to kind of bring me up to speed on how to run the business with a training period / consultation period maybe after that. But they also know, this key employee, there's going to be X amount of dollars that this person's going to get if they stay for a year and a half, and that puts the buyer at ease. Like, okay, great, the key employee, that's a good chunk of money for that employee.
Yeah, well, it's a great tactic all around, because you're ensuring continuity for an incoming buyer. If that particular employee is planning to stay with the business, which is a whole nother topic, because when a seller leaves and they have to deliver the message to their staff that, hey, I'm not going to be your boss anymore, I'm not going to be running this business. Usually they're a little scared, but a seller would say, I'm going to be here for the transition. There's a little something for you if you help through the transition, and hopefully you enjoy working for this incoming buyer, because I trusted the buyer and I'm selling them my business.
Yep. And you know what? I love when a business owner has that mentality that they really like their employees, they really like their customers and clients, maybe sometimes even their vendors and suppliers. And it's important to them not just how much money they're going to get on the sale of the business. It's not just important to them that the terms are good for them, but they're also like, I want to find the right buyer. I want to find the right person that's going to take over the legacy of my company, and that's going to treat the people that have treated me well over the years, treat them the same as I treated them or better. Yeah. And I love that kind of mentality, rather than the business owner is like, I just want my money and I want to get out of here.
Yeah. I mean, we do at Boss Group, one of our standard operating procedures is we do a seller interview, and we actually personalize to all of the buyers inquiring about a business that they want to buy. We have the seller on camera talking about the business, and one of the questions I always ask is, what is the ideal buyer for your business? Tell me who you want to see take over your legacy and run your business. It's important that we're not just looking for somebody that has the dollar amount to acquire the business, but somebody that's going to acquire the business and run it in a way that it was being ran before, which is probably what made the business successful.
Yeah,
right?
Correct, right.
So when we're interviewing sellers and we're talking to sellers about, do we want to work together? One of the first questions that I get that's a flag to me is, well, what do you charge? What's the commission? Mm-hmm. Now, of course, a seller is going to want to know what is going to be my cost to do this, but that should not be the first question. The first question should be, how do we get this done? Why are you the right fit? Not how much do I have to pay you?
Right.
If you're selling your business, which you said is probably going to be one of the largest sums of money that goes to this individual that's selling it, shouldn't you be making sure that you want to work with that person before, what am I going to have to pay you?
Right. Yeah. Right. That'd be a great another episode, that whole thing about commission, because when a business owner is zeroing in on how much they're going to have to pay a broker, that's probably the worst thing that they could be zeroing in on. And we don't charge any more than what most.
We're industry standard.
We're kind of I don't know if the industry standard is not really an industry standard, but if people call it around, we're kind of like right in there. But when they're zeroed in on the price, when you look at 10 to 20% of businesses for sale actually sell, nationwide, national average, not our average. 50% of the deals fall apart before we get to the closing table. National average, not our average. What's the length of time that it takes to sell that business? What's the process look like? How is that? How you want to maximize your sales price? You want to make sure you have good terms. You want to make sure you find the right buyer that's going to take over the legacy of the business. If you're shopping on a broker just on the money alone, you're missing it big time.
Yeah,
you're missing it big time.
What are some other things that has turned you off in a seller interview?
In a seller, the first time I'm talking to a seller and I'm talking to them, I think that as a business owner, you have to be extremely confident. Somebody that's not confident is usually not going to take that bold step and go out and start their own business. So I think there's certain characteristics that a business owner has, and one of them is that they got to be confident. Usually they have to be outgoing. They have to have a good personality, or I should say that they're able to talk to people well. And what I see sometimes is that overconfidence, where the business owner feels like they know everything and nobody knows as much as they do. And to me, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Because now we're dealing with a situation where you might be working, you could be working with them in the process, but they feel like they know more than you do as the business broker. I've been doing it for nearly 25 years, and they're, never sold a business, never bought a business, but for some reason they feel like they know a lot more than I do. And I come across that because I think business owners are confident, but then you get that sliver of business owners that are overconfident and they think they just know more than everybody. And I like the business owner that they are, they understand that they don't know everything, that they know that they need to hire employees that are either smarter or better than they are in a certain area, or fills in weaknesses, that because we all have weaknesses. We have our strengths and our weaknesses, and when you bring people onto your team, you got to understand, what are my weaknesses, and I need somebody that is going to work with me that's going to have those strengths. When they talk to their CPAs and they talk to their attorneys and business consultants, and they hear their advice and they take that advice and they digest it. Now, I'm not saying that you listen to everything your business broker says. You listen to everything your CPA or your attorney or a business consultant says. But you're listening to the team of people that are helping you build your business, and then you make a good, logical decision and you move forward. To me, that is a sign of a good, not only a good business operator, someone that's typically going to bring their business to a higher scale than somebody that just kind of thinks they know everything and nobody can do anything as good as they can. But it's also going to be the kind of the business owner that is going to be easier to work with in the process, because now I can have a business person to business person conversation with them and talk to them about, hey, this particular situation, I recommend da 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 da, and they're going to keep their ears open. They're like, and maybe we'll go back and forth a couple times. I'm not asking them to follow me blindly, but they're hiring us. Because of our experience and our expertise, we've seen a lot of things, and you're dealing with in an industry where 10 to 20% of the businesses for sale don't sell.
Yeah.
And can't get the deals done. So you need to rely on the business broker and the people around you to make good decisions.
So, Jim, we're talking about things that a seller is kind of like a red flag when we're deciding if we want to work with them or not. And there's a lot of times where I'll get on a phone call with somebody and they take a very aggressive approach. I'm interviewing a bunch of business brokers, and I think my business is worth X, and I would like you to bring it to the market and sell it for me for X.
And why should I use you?
You? Yeah. So if you're a business owner considering selling your business and you are reaching out to us for our expertise, I appreciate personally that you have a perspective on what your business is worth. But you are calling me, a business broker that's been doing this for 15 years, for my opinion on what your business is worth. So there needs to be some type of conversation and dialogue back and forth about why you think it's worth X, why I think it's worth Y, and we need to discuss what the pricing strategy should be, right? If you're calling me to say, take my business to market at X, I'm probably not your guy, right? There has to be a two-way conversation about that. And my favorite part is when somebody calls up and they say, I have no idea what my business is worth. You're going to tell me what my business is worth, and we're going to go to market and what you think we can get for my business.
They might even say, you do the broker's opinion of value, you come back with the most probable selling price, and they say, yeah, I can't sell for that much money. I mean, for that little. I need X in order to be able to, feel secure in my retirement or whatever it is. that's okay. At least they have an idea of what their business is worth. And from there, they'll be like, okay, I need to work in my business another 1, 2, 3 years so that I can keep accumulating enough money for retirement and then sell. Or, I need to grow my business to get to the level where I can sell it for the price I want to sell it for.
Or maybe when you're talking to them, the price is justifiable, but there's a huge issue with the business that needs to be fixed before you sell it, right?
Yes.
So, we kind of approach it from a consultative standpoint if they're not ready to sell to help them get to that level. But if they start the dialogue of, this is how much my business is going to sell for, and don't leave any room for, hey, let's talk about how to actually get there, that's not a good way to start the relationship. And ultimately, having good relationships plays such an important role in getting a deal to the closing table. I believe that building integrity and trust between a buyer and seller is the only way that a deal gets to a closing table. Buyer and seller have to like each other to some level, right? They have to respect each other at the very least. Even if they don't care for the person personally, they should have some level of respect. A buyer should for a seller who's selling their business. That's going to help it get to the
I think that buyer-seller relationship is so critical.
Let's dive into it.
Because I think like if you were selling a house, and obviously we don't sell homes, but if you're looking to sell your home, the buyer could care less who the owner of the home was, the house was.
Yep.
When you are selling your business, the buyer does care who the owner of the business is. They are going to do their due diligence once it goes under contract to make sure that the numbers match up. They're going to, look at legal aspects. They're going to spend their time analyzing that business. But at the end of the day, they are still going to be taking a little bit of leap of faith regardless. And it is really hard to get a deal even put together, let alone done, without the buyer liking and trusting the seller. And that's why sometimes when I'm talking to a seller on the phone for the first time, if the seller is like very arrogant and very, knows it all and just not a nice person, you can just tell, they don't treat anybody in their life well.
Hopefully you've weeded that person out before you get to that point.
Right, but no, I'm talking like first phone call.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking in the back of my head is, wow, buyers are not going to like this person. That is a red flag. That is, hey, I'm not going to be working. I don't want to work with this seller because buyers are not going to like this person.
Yeah.
And buyers do not put offers in usually on businesses where they don't like and trust the seller.
Sure. And also, if they do like each other, it simplifies the negotiation process.
Yeah.
A buyer and a seller, it's a give and a take all the way through. So, nobody comes to the table really, I won't say nobody, but rarely does seller say I want X and here are my terms, and buyer goes, perfect, let's just accept those and move forward, right? Yeah. So if they can start to build a relationship and communicate, there's a better chance that they're going to be able to negotiate and have a little bit of a give and a take based on what the buyer wants and what the seller wants.
And I want to flip this whole thing around because we're talking about the sellers, but we got to flip it around to buyers, because buyers, if you're looking to buy a business out there, it's really important that the seller likes and trusts you. Because remember, that seller, they built this business from nothing, from scratch. They built it up over the years. They put their sweat and tears into it. It's their baby. I know that that's an overused term, but it is their baby. They gave birth to it. They raised it. Now they're letting it go, and they want to make sure when they let the business go that they're letting it go to somebody that's going to take really good care of their business, take care of the legacy that they created. A lot of business owners, that's important to them. They're like, I built this thing. I built a great name for the business. I want to see that continue to go. And just like Carey and I said, they want to make sure that the employees are taken care of, the customers and clients are taken care of. It's a big point. And I think sometimes buyers miss that too when they come into a buyer-seller meeting, whether it's a phone call or an in-person meeting for that first time. They feel like, I'm just interviewing the seller and it's me. I'm going to decide if I want to buy the business. First of all, a lot of times we have a lot of buyers activity. There's a lot of buyers looking at the business, but buyers shouldn't have that mentality. Yes, they should ask the seller questions and they should interview the seller. But you know what? The seller at the same time is looking across the table in that meeting and going, do I like this buyer? How will they treat the people in my company?
That's a really good tip.
How well are they gonna do with the business post closing? Because they want to make sure. So that if you're a buyer out there, just make sure that
you're getting interviewed too.
Yes,
I had a situation
absolutely.
where multiple offer situation. Seller met with multiple buyers placed offers. and the seller ended up taking the lowest priced offer of the 3 offers that were on the table because they believed in the buyer, they liked the buyer, and it wasn't just about money.
Right. They probably thought the buyer was more likely to be successful in the business and take good care of the people at the company.
Yep. So it is a two-way interview, and we try to encourage that when we sit down in a buyer-seller meeting, but it's very important for buyers to know that they're getting interviewed just as they're interviewing the business owner.
And we touched on this before, Carey, in another episode, but I think it's worth talking about again. A lot of times in our business brokerage community, brokers have this mentality that, hey, once a business goes under contract, you kind of want to keep the buyer and the seller apart as much as you possibly can, because the thought process is that they communicate among themselves, that the personalities might go the wrong way and it could kill the deal. And, there's a whole theory behind that. And Carey and I have the opposite thought process. The reason why that contract is put together to begin with is obviously price and terms, and everybody felt comfortable with that. But it's also because the buyer likes and trusts the seller, and the seller likes and trusts the buyer. And we want to foster that relationship throughout the entire process. And so we have, throughout the process, once we go under contract, we have frequent phone calls between ourselves, the buyer, the seller. If there's another broker involved, we invite them on, and closing coordinator Stephanie's there, and we foster that relationship, and they're talking directly to each other in a controlled environment so that they can hear from each other updates. The seller can hear from the buyer what's going on with the SBA lending and what's going on with the due diligence. The buyer can ask miscellaneous questions that they have while they're going through the due diligence process, and they're hearing it directly from each other, which helps foster that relationship, and it makes it easier to get to the closing table. And you know what? When you're putting together a deal, it's complex. It's a complex situation, and things do arise, problems do occur. And if everybody is on the same page and everybody's working together, it's a lot easier to overcome those obstacles when everybody's working together than when everybody likes each other and they kind of fell in love with each other at the meeting, an offer's put in, it's negotiated, it goes under contract, and then they don't talk to each other again for 2 or 3 months, and you lose that person-to-person conversation.
Yeah, fluid communication is critical to get a deal done, and we encourage as much communication throughout the sale process, especially once going under contract. There's different personalities, right? One buyer may be an introvert and a seller may be an extrovert, and they understand how that person wants to be communicated with. They build the relationship with them so they understand the things that are triggers, the things that make them tick, and the proper way to provide negative news, right? Maybe a business owner lost a contract. Well, if they have fluid communication with the person trying to buy the business and they can build that relationship, it's a little bit less of a hit when you're communicating back and forth throughout it because they're going through the journey together.
They're building trust with each other.
If it takes a couple months to sell a business, the business cycle for that business owner is likely going to change from when the business owner first went under contract to when it sells. Yeah. So if there's fluid communication and the buyer's along the way with the journey and, like you said, trust the seller, it's not a shock. Right? It's a better chance to get to the closing table.
Absolutely. And it's not just getting to the closing table, but once you close on that business, the seller is going to need to stay around for a little bit, whether it's a couple weeks, a month, a couple months, training the buyer on how to operate the business. And sometimes it could be a year. It depends on what the buyer and the seller agree to. The buyer might say, hey, seller, would you be willing to stay around for a month? For training that's included in the sales price of the business, but I'd love to pay you for another 3 months if that's okay with you, and then maybe another 6 months in consultation, phone consultation. Yep. And so there's going to be that period post-closing where the buyer and the seller are going to need to work together. So while if they're communicating throughout the process, again in a controlled environment, if they're communicating between each other directly, and it's fostering that relationship, it's going to be better for the buyer, it's going to be better for the seller post-closing because they already are starting to really get to know each other's personalities more and more and more.
Yep. I think the transitionary period, familiarization period, whatever we want to call it, is such a critical part about talking about how relationships play a role in selling a business. There are a lot of times where there's a pretty lengthy time where the seller has to stay committed. So when you're selling a business or buying a business, you got to take that into consideration that, hey, the day of closing doesn't mean that seller is gone. You're going to have to call that seller because you have to find out where something was left or what the password is for access on a software platform, or hey, how should I approach this employee that you worked with for a decade because I'm having an issue. Like, you want to be able to pick up the phone as a buyer of a business and call the seller and ask questions afterwards, because you're not going to get everything that you need in that
Absolutely. It's kind of wrapping around to what we were talking about in the beginning. We're going through life together.
Yep.
And all of us are going through life together. Let's make it more pleasant for each other. And during that transition period, just like we were talking about, well, we don't want to work with somebody that we dread calling them every time we need to talk to them, and we don't want to work with somebody that is dreading calling us every time they need to talk to us. It's important that the buyer and the seller feel the same way post-closing, because they are going to be working together, and you want it to be a good, pleasant experience for both parties.
Yep. No question about it.
And not to mention, as a business owner, isn't that what you want at the end of the day? You sell your business and you get a good price for the business, you get good terms, but you also know that your employees are being taken care of, your clients and customers are being taken care of, your vendors and suppliers, and you've got somebody that really knows how to operate that business is going to continue to make that business a success or take it to the next level, but also that is a genuinely good person that bought that business from you.
And by having good relationship between buyer and seller, you also mitigate post-closing risks. There are things that come up after the contract, not necessarily between buyer and seller's relationship or how they engage, but there could be misinterpretations over closing terms. There could be misinterpretations over things that are supposed to happen in a post-closing agreement. There could be settlement disputes on short-term liabilities like a power bill or accounts receivable coming in. And if buyer and seller enjoy each other and they worked fluidly throughout the transaction to get through these obstacles, post-closing, the same type of risk is going to be mitigated by having that positive relationship.
Yep. And I think this is an important thing to remember too if you're looking to sell your business out there. A lot of things that we do in life, like if you were selling your home or you're going to buy a car, that relationship that you have with the person buying your home or the salesperson is selling you that car, it's not really important. We're not overblowing this. We have a whole episode. We're doing this whole episode on relationships. And the reason why we're doing this whole episode on relationships is because relationships, when you're selling a business, is extremely important. It's important that you have a good relationship with a broker that you're working with. Hopefully it's myself or Carey. It's really important you have a good relationship with a buyer. You have good relationships. That is what's gonna help you sell your business.
And it sounds logical, like very basic what we're talking about, but it's missed. It's missed all the time.
Yes.
Think about it from a reputation standpoint, right? You're looking to buy somebody's business, and that seller is philanthropic. Their customers are raving about them. The customers are raving about the business. The business did me right for X amount of years. The employees are raving about the business. How much more comfortable do you get as a buyer when the reputation's strong from a seller?
Yeah,
the business owner. And also, when you talk about reputation too, or you talk about networking, maybe the seller's really well connected in the community. If I sell a business and the buyer of my business is now taking that business and running with it, people may still be calling me because they know me and associate me with the business that I owned. I want to refer that potential client over to the new owner of my business.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So everything is all about just building that relationship and continuing to trust each other, like each other, and make it a really harmonious transaction.
And this is not just, hey, I got to get this person to like me, and for the seller to be thinking that about the buyer, and the buyer to be thinking I got to get the seller to like me. It's about being who you really are.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Being who you really are, being genuine. Sometimes in life, you take two good people that are good people, but they're completely different, and it's not a good match. And it's better not to fake it. Be who you are as the seller, be who you are as the buyer, and because it's not about creating a fake relationship, it's about creating a genuine relationship.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And I think in kind of wrapping up what we're talking about today with relationships, since at our core at Boss Group, we believe in relationship over the transaction, we take responsibility from the very beginning to try to weed out business listings that we would take on to sell, to work with people that we would want to work with, and things that we think will be representative of a quality transaction. And then as we're working with buyers, we're also trying to do the same type of screening process where we're trying to genuinely match a buyer and a seller, that there's a chance that they're going to like each other. There's a chance that the business will be a good fit for what they do. Everything that we're doing is really based on trying to matchmake. And matchmaking happens with solid relationships. So I think in closing, while we're talking a little bit about some logical stuff, we really want to drill down on the point of how important it is to focus on the relationship in the process of selling a business.
And I'd like to just add real quick, if you are looking to sell your business, it's important that you really like and trust your business broker as well. So as you're talking to business brokers out there, you should be talking to them about their experience, their expertise, the process of selling a business, their success rate. I mean, there's a whole, you should be interviewing them. But at the end of the day, you got to pick somebody that you genuinely like and trust. You don't have to be best friends, but somebody that you're going to enjoy working with for several months, because things do get
choppy.
Choppy sometimes,
So as we wrap up today's topic, relationships, a key to selling businesses, we just want to let you know that if there's topics out there that you are interested in hearing us discuss, we would love and welcome all of your feedback. We appreciate you tuning into this episode of Boss Talk. Please subscribe to our channel, like the episode, and share it with your friends. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon at Boss Talk.